Hey guys, your assignment for today is to do pages 179 and 180 in your Singapore 4A textbook. In this video, I'm going to try and get through part one, numbers or letters, not numbers, D through I. Parts A, B, and C already have common denominators, so I'm going to skip those. I think you can probably do those on your own. And I'm guessing that you're getting to the point that you can probably do some of these others on your own too, but just so that we have a chance to really talk about it, and maybe there's something I'll say that will clear up any mistakes or problems that you're having. So let's take a look at part D. This says 2/3 minus 2/9. Right, now remember that when we subtract or add fractions, we have to make sure that the denominators are the same. Because if they're not, we're not really subtracting the same kind of things, all right? And again, remember back when we were meeting, we said something like, if you had, 5 puppies plus 2 puppies, you got 7 puppies. And this puppies that puppies is a noun. Just like if you had 5/3 and 2/3, that these are the same noun and you could add them and you would get 7/3. But if you did something crazy like 5 puppies plus 2 kittens, you wouldn't get 7 puppies and you wouldn't get 7 kittens. You would have to find something that they have in common in order to add them. So maybe you would say 7 baby animals or something like that. But you wouldn't say that this was 7 puppies or 7 kittens. Again, we have to find something in common before we add them. So same thing, if we had 5/3 and 2/8, yeah, GHTH. S, okay. We can't add them. We won't get 7/3 and we won't get 7/8. We have to find something in common. So that's what we're going to do here. All right, we're going to find what 3 and 9 have in common. And generally what I would do at this point is I would start with the bigger one, and I would look over at the little guy and I would say, is 9 a multiple of 3? And if it is, then we're in good shape, because that will be the thing that they have in common. Right? I know that 9 is a multiple of 3 because when I skip count by 3s, 3, 6, 9, I end up at 9. So here's what I would do. I would say 9 is the common denominator, and I'm just going to write it over here. 9 is and in fact, it's called the least common denominator. L standing for at least, C for common, D for denominator. It's the least because it's the first thing that they have in common. All right, so 9 is the LCD, which means that I have to change this denominator into a 9, and I get to leave this one here. All right. Now, I don't always add or subtract horizontally like that. I just wrote stuff here, so I'll do some both ways. So I want to know, what do I have to do to this denominator to change it into a 9? All right. Well, I would have to say I need to multiply it by 3. Because 3 times 3 gives me 9. But in order to do that, I have to do the same thing to the top. All right, I can't change the bottom without changing the top too. So since I did 3 times 3 is 9 here, then I'm going to do 3 times 2 is 6 here. So this becomes 6/9. And then this is 2/9 still. Now that they have a common denominator and I've adjusted the numerators appropriately, now I can just subtract. So 6/9 minus 2/9 would give me 4/9. And again, the 9 is acting like our noun here, like puppies. And so I'm just subtracting the numerators, then I'm not changing the denominator. This says I have 6/9 minus 2/9, and that gives me 4/9. It doesn't change how much is down here, right? So our final answer would be 4/9, or the difference would be 4/9. But then the last thing that you have to do is check to see, is there any way that we can simplify that? Are there any common factors that are shared between 4 and 9? So I usually pick one and I think about all the factors, and we've been practicing that or we had been practicing that when we were trying to find the greatest common factor. So I would say 2 goes into 4, but doesn't go into 9. 4 goes into 4, but it doesn't go into 9. The only other factor is 1, but that doesn't reduce it. So since the only factors of 4 don't simplify or aren't shared by 9, that is the final answer. All right, so 4/9 is it. All right, hopefully that was good. Part E says 1/6 plus 3/12. And again, same idea as we did up here. I'm going to look to see what do these two share in common. And let me do this one vertically this time, because sometimes I like to do that better. So I'm going to write it as 1/6 plus 3/12. And then I'm going to say, okay, I need to change them so that they are common. And again, I start with the bigger one and I say, does the smaller one, 6, go into the bigger one, 12? And if it does, that is our common denominator. So since 6 does go into 12, 12 is our common denominator. Right, now I don't have to do anything to change this one. It already has a denominator of 12, so I'm just going to move the numerator over. But this one I do need to change. So I'm trying to find what fraction is equivalent to 1/6 but has a 12 in the denominator. So I would need to multiply the bottom by 2, because 2 times 6 is 12. But then I have to do the same exact thing to the numerator. Again, I can always multiply by 1 because that doesn't change the value of the fraction. And so I always have to make sure that these are the same, 2 over 2, right? Because 2 halves is the same thing as 1. Just like up here, 3/3 is the same thing as 1. Okay, so then I go across the top. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 6 is 12, and now I'm ready to add because I have common denominators. So 2/12 plus 3/12, just like 2 puppies plus 3 puppies, it's going to give us 5 because we add how many we have, and then we keep what we have the same. We have 12ths, so we don't change that. So the answer is 5/12. And again, I should state this, although I just kind of do it in my head quickly, but 5 is a prime. That means its only factors are 1 and itself, 5. Since 5 is not a factor of 12, there's nothing that can reduce here. The only factor of 5 doesn't go into 12, and so we just leave it like that. Okay, the next one is letter F. All right, this is 5/6 minus 2/3. All right. So again, I'm going to write it vertically just because that's my preference. And I'm going to start with the larger denominator, the 6, and I'm going to ask, does 3 go into 6? Is 3 a factor of 6? And it is, so that is the common denominator. All right, again, I just want to see if I skip count by 3s, do I get to 6? Since I do, we'll use that as the denominator or the number that they share. Okay, so 6 is already a 6, so I don't have to do anything to the numerator. It stays the same. If you want, you can think of it as just multiplying by 1 over 1, because 1 times 6 keeps the 6, and then 1 times 5 keeps the 5. Right, in the denominator here, I have a 3. I want a 6. So what I need to do to the 3 in order to get it to an equivalent fraction that has a denominator of 6 is I need to multiply it by 2. And then I have to do the same thing in the numerator, because again, I can only ever multiply by a 1. All right, and 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1. So 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4. Again, don't forget that we're subtracting here. I haven't been carrying that operation over, but it should be subtraction here. So I'm going to put it in here tiny. All right, this says 5/6 minus 4/6. So really all we're doing is the 5 minus 4, because this counts how much we have. So 5 minus 4 is 1, and the 6 is what we have. We have 6th, so we're not going to change that. This just becomes 1/6. And then we say, does it reduce? Well, no, 1 is not going to reduce to make that fraction any smaller. Okay, I want you to pause the video. Actually, here's letter G. Let me write it down. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to do letter G by yourself. So this says 13/16 minus 3/8. And again, you can leave it horizontal like this, or you can write it vertical. Again, my preference is vertically, but you can do it horizontally if you want. So 13/16 minus 3/8. So pause the video for just a second, and I want you to find the common denominator, whatever that's going to be, and then I want you to adjust the numerators, and then I want you to subtract and see if you need to reduce. And when you're done, come back and I will talk through it, and then you can check to see if you did the right thing. Okay, so turn it off now. Okay, how'd you do? Let's see. I'm going to start with the larger denominator, and I'm going to say, is 16 a multiple of 8, or is 8 a factor of 16? And the answer is yes. So 16 is the common denominator. In most of these problems, they do that. They have the larger one as a multiple of the smaller one. So most of the time, the answer is going to be yes, and the bigger one will be the common denominator. As we get into harder problems, that won't always be the case, but for right now, that's what they're doing. Okay, whoops. I was talking and not paying attention. So the denominator here in the bottom one is also going to be 16. I don't need to do anything to this, so that numerator is going to stay 13. And in the denominator here in the bottom fraction, in order to get 8 up to 16, I need to multiply it by 2, and so I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm using this dot for multiplication. I think we've talked about that before, but X like that means multiplication, and a shortcut is dot like that. So I'm using this is kind of the more grown-up version, but if you still like to use the X, you can do that. All right, so this says 2 times 3, that's 6. And again, we're going to remember that we're subtracting. Sometimes when it switches back and forth between addition and subtraction in a bunch of problems like it does here, I like to circle the operation so I remember to do the right thing. All right, sometimes then it says subtraction, but I'm so used to doing addition that I forget, and I just add. So if I circle it, that helps me remember. All right, then we do 13 sixteenths minus 6 sixteenths, right? So again, the 16ths is not going to change. It's just going to be the 13 minus 6, which gives us 7. Then I ask, does 7 share any factors with 16? And the answer is no. Again, 7 is prime, so its only factors are 1 and 7 is not a factor of 16. So that is our final answer. All right, then let's do part H. I'm going to write it down, you're going to write it down, and then you're going to do it and then check back to see how you did. So 17/20 plus 3/5. And again, just to save space, I'm going to write it vertically right away. If you prefer to do it horizontally, when you write it down, just write it horizontally. Okay, so you're going to find the common denominator. You're going to fix the numerator for any that you have to change, and then you're going to add. Okay, so turn it off and then come back when you're ready. Okay, again, to find the common denominator, I'm going to start with the larger denominator, and I'm going to say, is 20 a multiple of 5, or is 5 a factor of 20? They mean the same thing. And yes, it's true. 5 does go into 20. I can tell because it ends in a 0. So 20 is the common denominator. This one I don't need to change, so that stays 17/20. This one I'm going to need to fix, so 5 times 4 is going to give me the 20 I need, and then 3 times 4 is going to give me the new numerator. All right, so it's going to be a 12. Again, if we reduced this fraction, if we found the common factor in there, it would be 4, and we would cancel it out, and we would get down to 3/5. So these two are the same value right here. We've just made it look or we've changed it so that they have a common denominator. All right, again, we're adding. So then it's 17/20 and 12/20 gives us, 29/20. Ooh, this one got interesting. All right, 29/20. What type of fraction is that? Hopefully you said an improper fraction. And remember, in an improper fraction, we don't leave it like that. We write it as a mixed number. So we need a whole number here, and then we need a fraction right here. That fraction is always going to keep the same denominator, so it's going to be 20ths. And what we want to find is, if I have 29/20, remember 20ths means that it takes 20 of those pieces to make one whole. So imagine a cake that was cut into 20 pieces. I can't possibly do that this quickly, but there would be 5, another 5, another 5. another 5. So we have 20 pieces plus an extra 9, right? Which means we got one whole cake and we have 9 20ths left over. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm just taking out groups of 20 from that 29 and I'm making whole things. So I could make one whole thing and I have 9 20ths left over. That is our final answer. Again, 9 only has 1, 3, and 9 as its factors. 3 and 9 don't go into 20. All right, I'm going to try and do the last one in here. This is part I. I might run out, in which case I'll have to do it on the next tape. 9 tenths plus 1/2 plus 3/5. And again, you're going to do this one on your own. Don't be freaked out by the fact that it's 3 of them. All right, just start with the largest and say, is 10 a multiple of 2? Is 10 a multiple of 5? If you get yes for both, you know what to do. Okay, come back when you're ready. Okay, 10 is the common denominator because 10 is divisible by both 2 and 5. So this one doesn't need to change. We need to rewrite 1/2 as a fraction that has a 10 as a denominator. That's going to require us multiplying the denominator by 5 and the numerator by 5, so that becomes 5 tenths. This one, we're going to have to rewrite 3/5 as a denominator with 10. That's going to require multiplying by 2, because 2 times 5 is 10. All right, that gives us 6 tenths. Now we add. Sorry, I did write it over here. It's just tiny. Okay, 9 plus 5 is 14. 14 plus 6 is 20, so this becomes 20 tenths. All right, and again, this is an improper fraction. We're trying to make a mixed number. And so what we're doing is we're taking out groups of 10. All right, so with 20, I can get at least one group of 10. I can actually get a second group of 10 because 10 and 10 is 20. So this reduces to 2. When I take out those two groups of 10, there are no pieces left. And so this just reduces to 2. Okay, come back for the next video on part 2. Bye.